Anthropic just dropped Claude Code 2.0, and if you are a Cowork user, you absolutely need to pay attention to this. Because for the first time ever, Claude Code doesn't look or feel like a developer tool. It honestly feels like you're using Cowork, but it can do things that Cowork straight up can't do. We're talking multiple agents running at the same time, tasks that keep going even when your computer's closed, and they just dropped Opus 4.7, which makes the entire thing much more capable. So in this video, I'm gonna break it down and compare it to Claude Cowork, and I'm even gonna show you how I have Claude automatically generating Instagram carousels and posting them for me on autopilot. So if you've ever felt like you're outgrowing Cowork, but didn't want to have to touch a terminal or cursor, this is exactly what you've been waiting for. So without further ado, let's dive into this. All right, so let's quickly talk about what the new Claude Code 2.0 is. Then I'm gonna break down the interface, how to use it, what's new, and basically compare this to Claude Cowork. So first of all, let's talk about real quickly the issue you've probably run into inside of Claude Code if you are a more non-technical user. It's way more powerful than Claude Cowork, but there is this wall between a non-technical person and basically being able to use Claude Code, because right now, before this new update, we would have to use Claude in the terminal or in an IDE such as Cursor, and that is just a headache for most people that have to navigate. Most people have never opened a terminal, nor do they want to, and IDEs like Cursor still feel like they are developer tools, so that is why Cowork has been appealing to the mass public ever since it was released. So the main point of this that I want to talk about is the new interface feels like Cowork. Even though they are not the same, it feels much more similar to it. So if you have used Cowork in the past, migrating from that and upgrading to the new Claude Code desktop app probably will be a simple transition. So let's break down very simply what the experience inside of Claude Code used to be. So before, we would be using Claude Code in a terminal, which is, basically a similar view to this. Let me pull up my terminal real quickly. It's basically just like this box here of text where we would type in commands and it would basically run code for us. If you're non-technical, believe me, you don't want to spend much time in here. It's just not very fun. So that is one way that people are using Claude Code. Another way is inside of something called an IDE. A perfect example of an IDE is Cursor. As you could see right here, this is a screenshot of my Cursor and my Claude Code instances right here. And if you don't know what an IDE is, it stands for Integrated Developer Environment. Think of this as a place where developers go to write code, store code, run code, debug it, all of that stuff. But the key thing to focus on right here is this is meant for code. So if you're non-technical, using something like Cursor or a different IDE platform, it's one step up from using the terminal. It's not nearly as complicated, but it still is a little bit of a headache, and there are simpler ways to use it. All right, so in order to begin using the new revamped Claude Code, we need to first make sure we have the Claude desktop app downloaded. So there will be a link in the description to download this if you do not have it already. This is different from the basic Claude in the browser, because if I click on this code mode here, this is a different interface than we're going to get inside of the new desktop app. Once we have that downloaded, let's go ahead and open it. What we're going to see is we're going to see a completely new interface across the entire desktop app. So not only for Claude Code, but we're going to see difference in Claude Cowork as well as the normal chat mode. As you could see here, we are in chat mode. We have good old Opus 4.7, which is very, very good. I'm going to touch on that later in this video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to toggle over to Cowork mode to show you very simply what this looks like. You're probably familiar with this if you've watched this channel. I cover a bunch of Claude Cowork, and right here we have our code button, and that's what we're going to focus mainly on in this video. So let's just go through a rundown of how this interface looks now so you can get a sense before I break down the new capabilities we have in here that take it from this level in Cowork to the next level inside of Claude Code. So first of all, we're going to see this. We could basically see all of our different model usage right here. And this is pretty interesting. If you're a power user, for me, I don't really care too much. Next, on the left-hand side, we have the ability to create a new session. We have routines, which I'm going to touch on later because this is very, very interesting when we actually begin using this. We have our customize button, which will take us to our skills, as well as all of our connectors, which are basically where we can connect our apps we're using. If you don't know what skills are, these are basically workflows that we could trigger automatically. So we could teach Claude how to do a specific task, and whenever we ask it to do it, we don't need to give it a long prompt. One key thing I want to mention right now is any of the skills you have inside of regular Claude or Cowork transfer over to Claude Code in the desktop app. So as you can see, I have tons of different skills here I've used across Claude Cowork, and any of the ones you're using will populate here as well. Also, if you're interested, if you want any of those skills that I showed you, I do have all 50 plus skills that I use every single day inside of my Skool community. There will be a link to join it in the description. Moving on to the rest of the interface, we do have this more button here, which will take us to dispatch mode, which is basically a way for us to trigger this from our phone. So if we wanted to go off and do certain things inside of Claude Code, I could just pull up the Claude mobile app and send off a prompt, and it can go off and basically do anything we can do directly inside of here on our computer. Next, I have a couple of different pinned tasks here. I have IG Carousel in this one as well as if I open this, we now have routines right here, which if I open this up, you could see it's basically a workflow right here, and it basically shows any time that this is triggered. And I'm going to show you exactly how powerful these are and how to set these up later in this video. Next thing I want to note is in the sidebar here, if I open this up a bit more, we have a couple of different things. So we have this specific folder. So this is one folder on my computer called Claude Code short system. So these are all the tasks I'm doing inside of that folder, but I could also pull up other working folders that I'm inside of. So I have a second brain folder as well, basically where I configured my Obsidian to act as a second brain. And so we could work across all of our different projects right here. We're not bound to just one folder that we're working inside of on our computer. Then if you are interested and you don't like this light mode, we can change it to dark mode. I think this looks pretty clean as well, but let me click it back to light mode. I like this version a little bit better. All right, so if I come inside of an existing task that I have, we're also gonna see this right sidebar. So if I click on this, we can see a couple of different things. So we have preview mode. So if I spin this up, let me show you exactly what it is. This shows basically a user interface of any of the apps we're working on. So I was actually vibe coding this script pipeline. So we can now actually see what it is that we're vibe coding and coding directly inside of here. Then we could see all of our diffs here. So this is more for those coders. If you really want to see what's going on with the code, me personally, I don't want to see that. That scares me. Then we could actually have our terminal directly inside of here. So we could paste specific commands if we want to. We also have all of our tasks. So right now I don't have any tasks running, but if I were to be running this workflow and had a bunch of different things going off, we could see each of them individually directly inside of this side view, as well as we have all of our plans here. So for example, I was going back and forth and figuring out how to improve this specific skill that I have. So it's writing out the plan here for me to go ahead and approve before we move forward with it. All right, so now that we understand what the interface inside of the new Claude desktop app looks like, let's now talk about routines, because this is where things get really interesting. And if we use this correctly, it can be extremely powerful built into our systems inside of Claude. Basically, what is a routine? So basically a routine is something that runs on a schedule. This could be daily, weekly, or custom, and these can actually be triggered from GitHub or API calls. And that makes these different from scheduled tasks you've probably heard of inside of Claude Cowork. And on top of all of this, this runs on Anthropic servers, not ours. And what that means is that these can run on autopilot even if our computer is closed. That is one big problem we have run into inside of Cowork while using scheduled tasks. Yes, you can run specific skills and workflows on autopilot, but your computer and your Claude desktop app needed to be open. Well, that is not the case anymore with routines. So let me show you exactly how you can set up a routine. And I'm going to show you this Instagram carousel routine that I have running that automatically comes up with content ideas and generates them for me while I am not touching my computer. All right, so if I come back over to the Claude desktop app and I click on routines, you can see that I personally have a daily Claude trending carousel that runs every single day at 6 a.m. as well as we have this new calendar view. So for any of these automations that we have, we could actually see on the calendar when these will be running. And I can imagine this is going to get pretty cool when we have multiple different workflows triggered at different times throughout the day or throughout the week. This is a pretty cool touch for them to add this, honestly. So there's a couple of ways that we could begin creating these routines. So first of all, we could come over here, click on new routine. And from here, we have two options. We could run this locally or we can run this remotely. So let me break down the differences right here very simply. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to create a remote routine so that way this can run even if my computer is shut. Then what we're going to do is we're just going to give this a name. So basically we can name this daily code review, whatever the case may be. Then we're just going to describe what we want this to do for each session. Then we could select which model we want to use. We're going to use Opus 4.7 because this just released today. It is by far the most capable model. We could select a specific repository from GitHub that we want to work inside of. And from here, we could actually schedule our trigger. So we could go hourly at specific minutes. We could do daily at specific time. We could do it on weekdays, weekly, or custom. So for example, if I want this to run every day at 9 a.m., I would just select that. I could also add another trigger here. So if we want this to be triggered via an API call, we could do that as well. Then you're going to see that we could add any specific connector we want to use for this workflow. So if we want to be able to access Gmail, Slack, Google Calendar, all of these different applications, we could go ahead and configure that so it's able to do this automatically. All right, so this is a specific routine I have. This is my daily Instagram carousel creation. So this will basically scour anything that's worthy for me to make an Instagram carousel about, and it will come back to me with some different ideas every single morning at 6 a.m. So if I click on run now, you could see it will actually start this run, and I could take a look at all of my previous ones. Another way we can create these routines is we could come back to either a new session or a previous session. I'm going to start with a new one. This is my skill that will generate Instagram carousels on autopilot. So let me show you exactly what I mean. So all of these right here were generated directly with this specific skill. I didn't have to give it a long prompt. All I did was invoke that skill and basically said, I want you to make one about my 5 Claude Code skills that I can't live without. And look at how solid these look. These are absolutely phenomenal. Like, these look super good. Here is another one that I created today about Claude Opus 4.7. I mean, those are super solid. And again, once I created this skill and crafted exactly how I want the output to look, it works almost the exact same every single time that I run this. And if we come over to my Instagram, you can see that I've been posting about these. This one right here was performing very well. It's got over 1,200 comments. This one is absolutely crushing. It's up to almost 2,000 comments. So this right here is basically just proof that this skill can create some amazing Instagram content directly inside of Claude Code. The problem I ran into before is I was using this inside of Claude Cowork, or at least I was trying to, but I wasn't able to generate images because it's in a sandboxed environment. So I wasn't able to use external APIs in order to generate these images because I am using Nano Banana Pro, which is the Google AI image model. And there's no way for us to do that inside of Cowork. So I'm very happy that they released this new desktop app update. So I'm able to now run this directly inside of the desktop app without me needing to go into Cursor. So I gave it this command right here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain how I want it to turn this into a routine that can work on autopilot. All right, so I want you to use this skill, and every single day at 8 a.m., I want you to go and find the latest news about Claude and Anthropic, if there's any cool releases. And then I want you to come back with some different Instagram carousel ideas for me to post. I want to post one every day. So I want you to turn this into a routine so it could work while I'm sleeping. So the reason I want to show you this is because yes, we can create a routine if we come over here and configure it manually, or we could just create it conversationally through a specific task inside of Claude Code. Next up, I'm going to click on bypass permissions so it doesn't just keep asking me if it can do certain things. That'll speed up the process. All right, so we have our routine now created, and we could see it in 2 places. If I come over to routines, we could see it right here, or we can see it on the calendar. You could see today I have 2 specific routines that are running. And if I click on it, let me go ahead and open this one up. We can see the instructions here. And you can see that I actually have it running right now. So what I highly suggest you do is click run now to test and see if this workflow is working. And like I did right here, we could click on it and see exactly where in the process this is. All right, so that ran perfectly. As you can see here, here are the ideas for those slides. And if I scroll down, you could see all of these different Instagram carousel images. I mean, these look pretty solid. Obviously, we could go back and forth and change this a little bit. This isn't perfect, but you could see that we can now generate these images with the Nano Banana API directly inside of here. And this was all done on autopilot with this specific routine that's running. All right, so we've generated our carousels and the routine is running. So the question is, how do we now automatically post these? So of course, you could go ahead, post these individually yourself. However, me being the AI nerd I am, I want to be able to automate this entire process. So I'm going to show you exactly how we can schedule these posts on autopilot without us having to manually do it. So I'm going to come up to connectors. And if you don't know what connectors are, these are basically just how you connect your applications to the whole Claude desktop app. And you can see I have a couple of different ones configured here. If I click on browse connectors, there's tons of different ones that we can add to Claude. But if there is an app you want to connect to that you do not see right here, I'm going to show you a quick hack to allow you to do that. I personally use a platform called Zappy or MCP that allows you to connect to 9,000 plus different applications automatically. It's just very simple and easy to use. I'm going to quickly show you in like 30 seconds how you can set this up. So we're going to click on create new MCP server. We're just going to click on Claude Cowork as our client. Don't worry. Of course, we're using Claude Code now, but we just need to connect to the Claude desktop app. So from here, we're just going to add any of the different tools we want to add. You could see I have Stripe, HubSpot, Google Drive, School, basically any app you want to add, you could add it here. And we have different actions for each app that it can actually perform for you. Then we're going to click on connect and then click on add to Claude. From here, we're just going to click on connect, and then we'll have access to all those apps that we configured inside of that server. Now, in order to automatically schedule these posts, I'm going to use a tool called Blotato. So let me show you exactly how to set that up right now. If I go into my Blotato account, you could see I have 17 different posts. This one went live today. I could actually view this post. I could go through each of these posts that I've actually scheduled, but I'm going to show you exactly how we could schedule these right now. So first thing we need to do is sign up for an account. There is a link in the description below. And then we are going to come over to settings. From here, we're going to configure all of our different apps we want to connect. So we could log into X, we could log into LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, all of these different platforms that we want to connect to. Personally, I am just connected to Instagram and LinkedIn right now. So once you connect your app, we can move on to the next step. From here, we're going to come over to API. So we're going to come over to connectors. We're going to click on add custom connector, and we're going to give this a name. I'm just going to call it Blotato. And what we're going to do is we're going to come back to our Blotato settings. We're going to copy this URL right here. We're simply just going to paste that in, click add, and then we're going to see this little button that says connect. We're going to click on this. It's going to take us back to our Blotato account. We're going to approve access directly inside of here. And we're going to open back up Claude. So we should see this in our connectors. As you could see, I have it right here, and we could go ahead and change the permissions right here. I'm just going to click on always allow, so it's not always asking me if I can do things. Also, I wanted to mention there's plenty of other things you can do inside of Blotato. You could see all of your posts here in one view. So I could see everything that I've posted and everything that is going to be posted. And there's even some good templates in here if you want to automatically create content using a specific design, for example. Next, I'm just going to come back to my task where we generated these carousel images and just say, can you now schedule this post to go live? Boom. And just like that, schedule this to go live tomorrow, April 17th at 9 a.m. And if I come back to Blotato and check my account, we should be able to see this on the calendar. And just like that, you could see Claude Code just got a desktop app. It is now scheduled for 8 a.m. Now, coming back to Claude Code in desktop, I want to show you that you could also run multiple sessions at the same time. So let's just say that I want to do email briefing, which basically it'll pull my email inbox, find any of the different emails I need to reply to. So I could run this task as well as I could pull up this one, and let's do Instagram carousel, and I could drag these together. So we could see each of these different tasks running at the exact same time. I could even pull up more. So for example, right here, I have 4 different sessions running directly inside of Claude Code. So this is a way for us to really become more productive directly inside of the desktop app. So the big question you might have is Claude Cowork dead? Have I wasted all of my time trying to learn this? And the answer is no. These are 2 different tools for 2 different people. You probably started with Cowork and now you might be hitting limits and you're wondering what next steps you could take, but you don't want to have to dive into the terminal or use something like Cursor or VS Code. And this is the answer. I've been basically instructing people in my community. I've had tons of people in my school community ask me if they should transition from Cowork to Code. And I think this is the perfect opportunity for people to take baby steps towards that. Me personally, I feel like Cowork isn't the destination. It's more the on-ramp to using a tool like Claude Code, but only if it's really easy for you to use. And I honestly feel like this new desktop revamp makes this transition that much easier. And the best part about this is you can still use Claude Cowork directly inside of here. And if there's ever a task you want to do that you can't do inside of Cowork, then you could just toggle on Claude Code and pick up where you left off. And if you guys want to use that exact Instagram carousel skill that I showed you, there is a link in my school community to actually download this, as well as I have this guide right here, basically breaking down exactly how you could set it up. Along with, you will have access to the 50 plus Claude Code skills that I can't live without, that I use basically every single day directly inside of the school community. And with that being said, guys, if you want more valuable content like this, subscribe to this channel. I cover all things Claude and AI for non-technical users. And with that being said, thank you for staying to the end, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.